Alright, good morning. We're going to be talking about estimating and rounding today. One of the biggest differences is that estimating is just getting a reasonable answer, something that's close as you can. So the best example of a difference between rounding and estimating is using 25s, I believe. So if I have 24 pages that I read in a book, and someone else had 73 pages that they read in a book, how many pages did we read altogether? Estimating allows us to say, well, 24 is pretty close to 25, and I know that 73 is pretty close to 75, so when I say how many pages did we read, it's about 100 pages. Okay? Whereas rounding, I would have to round that to either the nearest 10 or the nearest 100, which would make it 20 and 70. And now my answer is 90 pages. Now estimating allows both of those answers to be correct. Okay, so they are both considered reasonable answers. So hopefully as we go through some more examples that will make a little bit more sense. So in your workbooks today, I know this isn't the clearest picture in the world, but if you just follow along you can see this in your workbook as well. The first part is estimating. So Tasha read 3 books over the summer. Here's the number of pages in each book, so 494, 128, 368, and then it asks about how many pages did Tasha read. So that key word in there is going to be about, and that tells you that you can estimate or round. Okay? Explain how you made your estimate. So this one, 494, and I think the easiest way is just to estimate that one to 500. Right? 494 is really close to 500, and that's a really easy number to work with. Now the other two I'm going to look at and say this is really close to 30 and this is really close to 70. And I know together 70 and 30 make 100. Okay, so that will make those numbers a little bit easier to work with. So I'm going to say that's 130 and 368 I'm going to round to 370 or estimate to 370. Okay? So I know that now zeros, 7 and 3 make 10. And I'm going to add one over here. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And it's close to 1,000 pages would be your answer. Okay. Now, if you wanted to do that a different way, 494 will probably stay at 500. But if you wanted to do like we just did and say, oh, I like to work with 25s, those are easy numbers for me to work with, that's okay as well. You can easily estimate 128 to 125. And 368 is pretty close to 375. Okay. Now, same thing. I know that 25 and 75 equals 100. Those should be zeros. So I'm going to put my zeros here, carry my 1. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So again, I'm going to get about 1,000 pages. Okay. On to the next one. Now, this is rounding. Okay, so it says round each number to the nearest 100. So we've worked on this already, but the nearest 100 is going to be either 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, etc. Okay? So when we talk about 128, okay, what I like to think of it as, I put the other numbers around it. So I put 100 here, and 200 would be if I went up. And I think which one is it closer to? Well, 28 is closer to 100. Okay? Now to check that, remember when we're rounding to the nearest 100, you're always going to check the next place over. So the hundreds place is here, which means we're going to check the tens place. And if that tens place is less than 5, then we're going to round down. Okay? So rounding down puts us at 100. Okay? Now, the next one is a little bit trickier because it's more closer in the middle. So 649. So again, I'm going to think of it as if I round down, I would round to 600. If I rounded up, it would be rounded up to 700. Okay. But I'm going to check that tens place. My tens place has a 4 in it, which is less than 5. That means I'm going to round down, which is down to 600. Okay. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they don't write it out like this. A lot of third graders will do things like this. Well, I'm going to round 649. If I round up, it goes to 700. So if I round down, it must go, since this number goes up, if I round down, it must go down to 500. Okay. which is incorrect. So don't make that mistake and round down an extra 100, because the next 100 that you come to if you start going down from 649 is 600. Okay? So don't jump that far. Alright, I'm going to fill in the rest of these answers. Please let me know if you're having issues with them, but you can pause at any time and finish, and then go ahead and play it again to check the answers that you have. Remembering that we were rounding to the nearest 100, so even if you have an answer or a question like 62, don't make the mistake of only rounding it to the nearest 10. Okay, so 62 would be rounded to 100 is the nearest 100. 271 would be rounded to 300. 415 would be 400. 1,481 would be 1,500 is the nearest 100. 376 would be rounded to 400. 550, that 10 place is the 5, even though that is right in the middle, the 5 tells us to round up. So up would be to 600. And 2,615 would be 2,600. Okay. Alright, explain your thinking. When you round a number to the nearest 100, how do you know whether to round up or down? You should say something about rounding to, or using the tens place to tell you whether you should round up or down, and also add in there that knowing that the tens place, if it's 5 or higher, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you know you need to round up. If it's 4, 3, 2, or 1 in the tens place, you need to round down. Okay, so use complete sentences to answer it that way, but it should say something about the tens place and what number should be in the tens place. Alright, next page. Solving some word problems by estimating. Okay. On Saturday, the stadium snack bar sold 286 small drinks, 341 medium drinks, and 277 large drinks. How many drinks were sold? So altogether it's saying, which means I need to add. So I'm going to say 286, 341, and 277. And now this is where I start thinking, am I going up or down? And is it going to be close to the correct answer? Okay, so this one, I can say, I want to get close to something as possible, but I want to use easy numbers as well. So I'm going to go up a little bit to 300. Okay. This one I'm also going to go up a little bit to 300, because again, those are easy numbers to work with. And I also see that for this one, if I round down, I can round down to 300 as well. Okay. Now, that makes sense because I gained some, and then I lost some, which means I'm pretty much going to even out or come pretty close to evening out. Okay? So I know that 300 plus 300 plus 300 is 900. So I'm going to say about, again, keyword about 900 drinks were sold. Now, to check that answer, I'm going to add these up. Okay? So that's one way to check, is I'm going to add them and see if my answer is close to these. So 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 is 7 is 14. Carry my 1. 9 plus 4 is 13. Plus 7 is 20. I'm going to carry my 2 there. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Plus 7 plus 2 is 9. So 904 is very close to 900, which means that that is a reasonable answer. Okay? So on here I'm going to put about 900 drinks. Alright, next one, it says last week Mrs. Larson drove 191 miles on Monday, 225 miles on Wednesday, and 107 miles on Friday. About how many miles did she drive altogether? So again, it's an altogether question. So I'm going to add these. I have 191, I have 107, and I have 225. Okay. Now again, if you're close to this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to round or estimate your numbers to the same numbers that I am estimating to. But if whatever you do it to gets it close to 900, you know you're on the right track. Okay. On this one, 191 again is pretty close to 200. Okay. And I went up a little bit. This one I know I'm going to go down a little bit. Okay. So again, we're trying to even those numbers out. And we'll get about 100. And then I would actually leave 225 right where it's at, because to me adding 225 to a couple 200 and 300 isn't that difficult. So that helps me get pretty close. If you rounded it down to 200 or estimated down to 200, that's not a big deal either. Okay? But I know that's 300 plus 200 is 500, and then add the 25 in there. So my answer would be about 225. Again, if you had about 525. If you have about 500, excuse me, my light shut off here. If you have about 500, that would also be okay. But to me, 525 is a more exact answer, which makes it a better answer. Alright, I'm going to move this up here. So we're on 14 now. Of 832 people at the hockey game, 292 sat on the visiting team side. The rest sat on the home team side. About how many people sat on the home team side? Alright, so this is subtraction now. So I'm going to say of the 832 people, I know 832 people were there all together. So if 292 sat on the visiting team side, I'm just going to round that to 300. And to me, that is pretty easy to do. So I know I'm going to take those 300 away because they sat on one side, which means the rest sat on the other side, and this will give me the rest. So doing 2 minus 0 and 3 minus 0 to me is pretty easy. It's really no different than if you did 800 and 300. Again, that answer is reasonable, so I would mark it as correct. But to me, 2 minus 0 and 3 minus 0 is really about the same as 0 minus 0 and 0 minus 0. Either one, you're going to get a reasonable answer. So if you put either 500 or even if you round that, if you put about 500 people. Okay? So about 500 people would be a reasonable answer. Also, if you put about 532 or about 530, all reasonable answers when we talk about estimating. Okay? Alright, and our last part for today. So use rounding to decide if the answer is reasonable. Write your estimate, then write yes or no for reasonableness of the answer. Okay? So here, I'm just going to do 600 minus 200, okay, which gives me 400. Okay. Now, if I did that correct, that tells me that that is not a reasonable answer. 400 is a long way from 586. Okay? So I'm going to write out, my estimate is 400, and I'm going to write no, because that is not a reasonable answer. That is not close enough. Okay? 377 plus 191. Again, for me, doing estimates, 25, like 25, 50, 75, 100 are easy for me to work with. If you'd rather do 380 or if you want to round it up to 400, those are all reasonable answers. Plus 200, okay, would give me 575. So 575 is really close to 568, so I would say yes, that is a reasonable answer. Okay. 268 minus 257. Now what I see here is a chance to do 60s. Okay, so